Stepping inside the principal's office, building community with the right synergy. Stepping.
A lot of times this topic comes up with leaders. It's either met with
It's a safe place to be, where leaders can be free. Come learn new lessons.
gap is closing.
Feel free
Kids
to
are
ask a
increasingly
question.
involved in learning.
The principal's office. Inside the principal's office.
I mean, are you guys principals or middle school students?
Inside the principal's office.
Hello and good morning. Welcome back to the show. I am super excited for this episode. But before we get started, because we tend to ramble and we get off, so I got to make sure I say this right now. So if you're watching the show and you're a Father's Day, happy Father's Day to you. Happy early Father's Day, Mac. Happy Father's Day. I know that you're a dad, and happy Juneteenth. So yeah. I wanted to make sure that we got those out of the way before I forget. I'm sure they'll come up later on. But welcome. So excited to have you back in this space with us today. This is Inside the Principal's Office, a space for leaders to connect, to grow, to learn together, and to go out and do some amazing things. My name is Charles Williams. I'm just one half of this dynamic duo that we call Inside the Principal's Office. In addition, I am a principal here in Chicago at a K-8 school in the Austin neighborhood. I run my consulting company. I am the host of the Counter Narrative podcast, but probably one of the most fun things that I get to do is spend time in this space, not just with my co-host, Michael McWilliams, but with some amazing guests. And today we have some impressive guests. But I will turn it over to Mac. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing with your Black Fathers Matter shirt on? We do. We matter.
Yes. And shout out to my dean, Rodney Quinn, for getting me the shirt. I appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get me a dean so I can have a dean that'll give me one of those shirts. I'm going to have to get me a dean this year. Hey, I'm Mac. I'm Michael McWilliams. Everyone calls me Mac. I am a career principal. I have spent 22 years leading elementary campuses. 20 of that has been in the main seat, the principal seat. And we do such a good job of engineering these types of environments for teachers where they can collaborate and support each other. But there's not a lot of spaces that have been created for school leaders to come together and discuss things. Of course, our forum is open to anyone in education, but we certainly want to target leaders because everything rises and falls on leadership. I am a principal of a model professional learning communities at work school, and I'm also the founder of the Learning Leader, which is an educational consulting firm, company, whatever you want to call it. I call it just a resource to help support schools and support school leaders. And I am excited about being here. I have my little black book that I have every episode, and I am ready to learn from our guest today.
So Sharif, Warren, I know you guys are in the space, and I'm honored, right? I get to know who you guys are, but maybe some of our guests don't. So can you do us a favor and introduce yourselves? Warren, I'll kick it over to you first.
Well, thanks so much, Charles. Really appreciate the invitation to be on the show. So I'm Warren Salmon from Toronto, and I'm actually a non-traditional educator. I've created an online platform called ashware.com that for the K-12 space that features Afrocentric content. We have programs in all the different subject areas for K through 12, and really focus on the contributions of people of African descent, both ancient and modern. Going back thousands of years, and matching the contributions to things like math, science, STEM, language arts, history, just all the different subject areas. So, just to help teach a lot of the things that we're not typically taught in school.
And it's a great program. So I'll make sure that we drop that information in our Facebook group so that way people have access to it and maybe connect with you and bring it into their spaces.
Thank you.
Sharif.
No, pleasure to be here. Good morning. I second, happy Father's Day every day, but, it's going to take some special time to celebrate it. And then, Juneteenth Freedom Day. And, shout out to the organizers in Philly and around the country who are, uplifting the space and also the information about it. Right. So I was a teacher and a principal for 26 years, all in West and Southwest Philadelphia. I left there recently, 2019, to launch the Center for Black Educator Development. And our charge is to rebuild the national Black teacher pipeline, beginning with high school students, college students, exposing them to the mindset, skill, and will, the art and science, the technical aspects of teaching. Like, what does it mean to lead a classroom? So we provide those opportunities in the effort to rebuild the Black teacher pipeline. And with that, to support the Black teacher pipeline, we look at three pillars: policy and advocacy, and sometimes agitation to create that space, professional learning that we provide for anybody in the ecosystem, and then lastly, pathways. So high school programming, college student programming, to be able to participate. And
Right. Thank you. So if you're watching now, you may know why I'm so excited for this episode. Just surrounded by some awesomeness here, and we get to learn and grow together in this space. It is literally what we are designed to do. So as we've been discussing, this show is all about increasing Black male educators in our system, right? We know that the populations are low. In fact, it's about 7% for Black educators. But when you talk about male educators, it drops all the way down to 2%. And that's not okay, considering the fact of the population of Black males in schools today. So we're having a conversation today about how do we increase that. One of the reasons why in this space today you see 4 Black male educators is we talk about our own experiences and ways that we can increase that. And so, just really excited to share the space. And I just wanted, before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to another gentleman. He's not in this space with us, but it's one of the ways that I first really got connected with Sharif, and it's Jonathan Jones. So if you're familiar, this is the Uplift magazine, full of Black male educators doing amazing things, and they are into, I think we're in our 3rd cohort now.
Yep.
So if you're looking for other individuals to connect with, great resource, Uplift, Ideation. Please make sure that you reach out to them. So our typical format today, we have our 2 questions. We're going to have some conversation, and we'll close it out with some ideas that stick. So let's jump into question number 1.
Inside the Principal's Office Discussion Question 1. Most teachers in the United States are overwhelmingly white women, and fewer than 7% of teachers are Black, and just 2% are Black men. Why did you decide to become an educator, and what, as a Black male, has been your experience?
Question. And so, Sharif, I'm going to kick it over to you if you can start it off.
Yeah, it was not on my list of careers. I can't even say I crossed it off. It wasn't even on there. Never dawned on me to even consider leading a classroom, despite the fact that my mother was a teacher. Several cousins, were teachers. One, just Jerry Watley, shout out to her. She just retired yesterday from teaching. So, just had there was a culture of education in my household and family, but I knew I wanted to be an activist growing up. I knew I wanted to support my community. I knew I wanted to push back against injustices. But I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, like, my good friend Michael Cord. And he says he became a lawyer and he goes in the courtroom not to find justice, because he doesn't believe that Black people will find that in America. But what he does seek to find is to highlight and expose the injustices. So that was kind of my train of thought, the exposing injustices in the legal system. And a teacher or a friend of mine from my elementary school, and I had just amazing Black teachers, reached out and said, "Hey, they're recruiting Black men to teach. You should go to the meeting." I was like, "Mama Cynthia, I don't want to be a teacher, but she's a mama, she's an elder." So I listened, and I met Dr. Martin Ryder, veteran Black man educator. And he said, "Yeah, I see the activism that you're talking about," because I was trying to convince him why I shouldn't be at the meeting. But he said, "You know what, consider the idea that teaching activism. The purest form of activism is teaching Black children well.
Yeah.
And that hooked me and has fueled me for the past 30 years at this point. So seeing the connections between educational justice and racial justice, and how by leading a classroom, it can push up against that, as well as expose the injustices in the educational ecosystem and resist against that. I found that, fulfilling as a teacher, classroom teacher.
Powerful. Warren, what about you?
So as I mentioned, I'm more of a bit of a non-traditional educator. I mean, my degree is in computer science, and I just kind of saw a need for having information and teaching that was really more from an Afrocentric perspective, just more culturally inclusive. So I thought about using technology to really help to deliver those teachings and that information. So I started Blackboard International is the name of the company, and the Ashware line of Afrocentric software, which is the online platform. So really, I am in Canada, but I'm finding that there's a need internationally. Charles, we met in Chicago at ASCD. I was out in Cali at the National School Boards Conference. I mean, I just got back from Rwanda and for an EdTech e-learning Africa conference. And, we're seeing the same patterns, really globally with respect to, I'd call it kind of miseducation, from the Eurocentric perspective. And, really, when it comes to our history, a lot of it starts with, colonialism or slavery, but, really excludes our thousands of years of history, prior to that and all those contributions. So I think, education is key because, slavery was really justified by a lie, a lie about us. I mean, we look at what's happening in Ukraine, Putin, it's misinformation, miseducation that he's using to justify his action. So, it's education, I think, is so important. And, we really need to, change the narrative and get our message across and just, better educate people in terms of the truth. And, the truth will set you free. So my experience, it's been a great experience. In addition to Ashware, I'm also sit on the board of NAPSE, National Alliance of Black School Educators. And I'm also president of the Ontario Alliance of Black School Educators here in Toronto, Ontario. So, it's the greatest thing is meeting, great people, like yourselves, man.
That's dope. That's dope. Hashtag teach truth. online platforms too. No, that's dope, man.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been a great experience, and I really, love, I think it's extra special when some brothers get together, And last night, actually, I met with about 20 Black educators here in the Toronto area, teachers, principals, and, so that's a very powerful space. And so I'm really honored to be here today, and really thank you guys for bringing us together and for the work that you're doing.
Man, it's like a whole show. I want to just interview Warren. Like, wait a minute, tell us about Rwanda.
Right.
Tell us about the online platform. Tell us about, you know what I mean? So this is, y'all gonna have to bring Warren back just to dive into, I got to visit Rwanda, but to hear about this conference is amazing. And do you work with Kai? Do you know Kaya Henderson with Reconstruction.us?
Not yet, but
okay. All right. That might be a point of collaboration. She does online, kind of like out of school time support for Black children.
Okay,
and it's virtual. She started a couple years ago, and it's my daughters have participated. And I just want to say one thing, fellas, about this idea of the connection to Africa, because it's something that didn't, our history. Unfortunately, so many students think that Black history began with enslavement, when that that was, when you look at the history of our people, that's a blip, a painful terrorizing blip, but a blip in the actual
Right.
history, right? And if we start that late, like Dr. Carr says, if that's where you start, then everything else looks like progress,
Right.
from there. And they were like, oh, be quiet, be satisfied with where you are now as a people, because look where you came from. We're like, nah, dog, that ain't where we came from. We actually came from here. So this is why we're not satisfied.
Right.
That is why we're still enraged about like what's happening. So it's a very important piece.
Great point.
Mac, what about you? Why did you become an educator?
I became an educator because I was a struggling learner. And I didn't start reading till I was in the second grade. And although I lived in a predominantly African-American neighborhood and went to a predominantly African-American school, I don't remember having an African-American teacher until I was in the sixth grade. And it was in the sixth grade that I decided. I had a librarian, and I can remember vividly going to the library every morning before school started. And at that time, I really didn't understand why. I didn't put it in the context that I put it in now, but I know that there was a connection there that I did not feel through the remainder of the day. And then Thelma Brown, my sixth grade teacher, she impacted me so, and that is where I began to get confidence and began to connect in school, connect with others, and connect with the possibilities that I had. And it was in sixth grade because of Thelma Brown that I decided I want to make other kids feel the way that she has made me feel this year.
Shout out to Miss Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Brown.
I hope she's watching. We're Facebook friends.
Oh, nice.
Man, so like Sharif, I didn't want to be an educator. For a long time, I pushed back, which is crazy. My very first job was when I was in eighth grade, and it was an assistant for a summer school program in my district. And it was like, hey, this is the route that you're going to go. And I kept pushing back. No, I'm not going to be an educator. I can't do this. Even throughout college, I didn't even pursue education, but yet I'm here. And so, destiny has a way of making its way to you, right? No matter how you try to fight it, no matter which direction you try to go, you end up where you belong. But, I share this story, and I got to share it with Kansas City yesterday, just of growing up. I didn't really realize, I never had the opportunity to connect with being a Black male. Those things were stripped away from me in an attempt to protect me from America, right? And so I didn't really associate myself with being a Black male educator. It was just like, I'm an educator. But as I started being in spaces, I started looking around and just like, where are all the other guys that look like me, right? I would be in these spaces, right? And I just, that was my thing. And I started becoming very, very acutely aware, like in many of these spaces, I'm the only person, right? And I'm that guy, I will interject myself anywhere, anytime. And this isn't okay. And so I strove then to create spaces where there were more and more of us. And so in my school right now, we're in the west side of Austin, in Chicago. And it's one of the few schools in the area. If you walk in, our population of teachers look very much like our student body. My security guard, Black male, my dean, Black male, you've got me, you've got educators, teachers, Donald McCurdy, who's usually on the show, who comes to visit us, Black male. So I really tried to create a space that looked like our students, because it's like you all, I realized growing up from K through 12, I had two. One was a math teacher, one was a gym teacher. And that was it. That was it. And so I realized, how can we create a space for students to see individuals who look like them? Because we talk a lot about that, right? Like, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, but you don't see anybody doing those things. So how can we create a space where they see the things that we're talking about, so that in that way they say, hey, I too can be that. You're not just telling me and showing me old history books, right? Like, this is happening right now. This is somebody that I could relate to and connect to. And so that's been my experience. And I'll be honest, within the last few years, it has become the foundation and the driving force for everything that I'm doing. And it's really powerful to see where this can lead. And so like I said, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be in the space with you all, because understanding it, seeing the importance, understanding the power and the need for this work, is just huge. So first of all, I know we say this at the end, but I just wanted to say thank you to all of you in the space for serving as those role models for the countless of children that we've interacted with, who hopefully one day will become a Black male educator and continue this trend. You know, we talk about exponential change, and I believe that is the work that we're doing here.
Right. And I just want to add to something that you said, Charles, is I am so very aware on my campus, the impact that I have on other African-American boys and girls. But one of the reasons why I really do what I do is definitely for them. But I also consider other children. I want other children to see a positive example of a Black male who is professional, who is poised, who can communicate well, who can build relationships. I think that is important as well. Most definitely, we need to save our kids. We need to educate our kids. We need to connect with them. But we also need to make sure that we are being a model for others to see. One of the things that I started 2 years ago was Young Men's Leadership Academy, which is an after-school club, and we teach leadership skills, and it is amazing where, yes, there is a section of African-American men that young men that gravitate to that club, but there are others from other races. This is very important. We're teaching them how to shake hands and look in the eye. We're teaching them how to tie ties. And that's something that they are learning from an African-American male, even though they may be a different race. And I think that is very, very impactful, that we impact our own, but we also show a positive light for who we are and the things that we do and how we commit to this work. So very robust conversation already. We're going to jump into question number 2. Before we jump into question 2, though, I want to talk about Inside the Principal's Office, the book. You are watching the show, but we do have a book for school leaders, anyone that wants to be a school leader, anybody that wants to better understand their school leader. This is an excellent resource. It's a 40-week reflective journey that will address your message, your instructional leadership, servitude leadership. It will talk about you and your learning, how to tell your story, and most definitely how to celebrate the smallest victories and to reflect. You can pick this up on Amazon. And big, huge announcement, this book has been translated into Spanish, and it will be available soon in Spanish. It is doing very, very well. It is written by Charles, myself, and our good friend, Dr. Robert Thornell, who subs in and out of this show frequently. So I just wanted to put that shameless plug in there. Is that all right? This
of course, it's all right.
All good.
Really, talk about the book.
And those topics on there, those chapters that you have outlisted is absolutely, crucial. Like somebody had to give me feedback about telling my story, because I was just like, yo, let's just roll up our sleeves and get to work. And it was years before I, even started telling a little bit of, like my story and how my why and all that. Because my thing was, we're here, we got work to do. I ain't got time to be trading stories and all this. Let's just do the work.
But it's so
I didn't realize that
impedes.
I didn't realize it impeded the work.
Right.
Because I wasn't sharing that. And then the servant leadership and instructional lead, all that, like that's dope. I'm gonna have to copy myself and share it too.
Good deal. We're gonna go on to question 2, which is a huge subject. So let's it's really, really packed. Let's hear what our question 2 is so we can unpack it and have a very robust dialogue about it.
Inside the Principal's Office discussion question 2. Statistically, Black boys are more likely to be placed in special education and attend schools without the adequate resources to educate them. Would greater representation of Black male educators begin to address these systemic issues? If so, why is the percentage of Black males in education so low, and what can we do to increase those numbers? Wow, that's a lot. And Sharif, I hope you've had enough think time. I don't think you need think time to address this. I am very interested to hear you give us some wisdom.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you were right to set it up as a very packed question, right? Because there's so many things, but I'll just name, three that really stand out to me. One is just the experience of young Black men in school. When you talk about like, in the question or the build up, it was talking about over identifying them as problematic, right? Like, or when a problematic mean like, oh, you have a learning deficiency, or you have a speaking deficiency, or you have a thinking deficiency, right? All of these things, but then also just this pervasive anti-Blackness, right? Like all of that can be couched under anti-Blackness. On the other side is, the exposure. If many of us, period, may not have had Black men leading in classroom, then, picturing ourselves in spaces that are 80% white women may be a challenge. And I'll tell you a little story. When we started the fellowship, Black Male Educators for Social Justice, to support young Black men, as well as veterans, but Black men in the educational space who are aligned to social justice issues, we realized, and it was 17 of us from all over the country. We're all in Philadelphia working. And we realized not a single one of us had been approached about teaching, about leading a classroom until after we graduated from college.
Right.
And we all had master's degree and above. We were all successful. We were all like relatively good looking, like the works. Like we were in our space. And we said, like, let's ask our colleagues. As you would imagine, most of our colleagues across these 17 Black men were white women. The average response for them, as far as when they remember someone engaging them about leading a classroom, was third grade.
Wow.
So third grade for one group, post back for another group. And this is one of the reasons why we host, the Black Men Educators convening. We've been doing that, since 2015. October 1, 2015 was the first one. And so now we're going into, 2022 and November 17th through the 19th. And it's open to everybody, but it's centered, just like your show. It's open to everybody, but we're centering the voices, experience, and perspectives of a group of people that is often just amiss, not listened to, etc. So those are the two, the anti-Blackness, the experience, right? Dr. Chris Emden says, recruiting black children, but, particularly Black boys to teach is like inviting them back to the scene of a crime committed against themselves. Right? How many of them, and they share that with us. But what we try to do is help them see the connection between educational justice and racial justice, and allow them, and I would say significant number of our paid teacher apprenticeships that we use through our Freedom School Literacy Academy are young Black men. Our first group of Black Teaching Pipeline Fellows, they receive scholarships as well as retention bonuses once they become teachers. The first 4, and it wasn't planned out this way, 4 Black men. So these are 4 young Black men in college across the country. We're saying, yes, we're coming back to Philadelphia to teach because we understand how important that is. So those conversations, engaging as well as pushing back against anti-Blackness, because they experienced that, unfortunately, from age 3 and 4 years old all the way, man, I got folks who are getting their PhDs and still talking about the anti-Blackness they experienced from their professors. So let alone what does that 6-year-old or that 7-year-old experience?
Yeah,
Warren, so I know that's a lot, but that's those are the two I would say buckets I think about.
Okay. Warren, what are your thoughts on this question?
So actually echo some of what Sharif had said. Anti-Blackness, biases against Black males, I think is often what leads them to being put into special ed. It's like you can have, I was having this conversation last night with some brothers, and they're just saying, this guy's a principal, and he said, well, there's an incident with a Black student and a white student. For the Black students, let's, punitive measures, let's go by the book. For the white student, oh, he's such a nice guy, we don't want to ruin his reputation and, his career. And, so just totally different treatments of students. I mean, those are the stats, the patterns that just show that Black students are just treated differently. We're disciplined, overrepresented in special ed. And actually here in Canada, we also have a program called Special Ed Gifted. So oftentimes, if the gifted program is for really a path to, I'd say, higher academic achievement. and there's also underrepresentation in special ed gifted. It's like 100 to 1, in terms of the representation, and the opposite when it comes to special ed. So I think the biases and the actually lack of and disproportionality of Black teachers, Black educators, often, I think contribute to the overrepresentation of Black students in special ed. So in terms of, what can we do to increase the numbers? I think that, again, coming together, like, a program like this, or, just first of all, recognizing the issue and coming together and looking at how we can better support, encourage Black males to get into the profession. I think seeing positive role models is one thing that can really help, and it's almost like a snowball. So it's effect, I think. So the more Black male teachers are in these districts, probably the more exposure that we can give to students to consider that. And I think it's not there yet, but there's definitely a lot of work to be done. And I think that again, getting together, and I think brothers really looking and strategizing ways to really help address it are very important. And it's so I'm not saying it should just be brothers. I know a sister, right. She's the president of the Metropolitan, I think, Cleveland Association of Black School Educators. She started a great initiative within the district to help recruit Black male teachers, and it hit the news. It's just another great initiative to really help to address that. So I think we really need to just keep chipping away at it, and see how we can really look to scale it up. And I'd say, serving others, is the greatest thing that we can do in our lives. Changing the lives of others, serving others. I mean, that's going to be the most fulfilling thing that I think, whether it's through teaching or whatever, but giving back and helping others, I think, is very fulfilling and very noble as well.
Indeed.
So those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, we want to bring in some of the voices of those who are in this community online. Ayodele Harrison says, low percentage current Black male educators holding a not so encouraging perspective on the profession due to the challenges they face. And John, who was a guest on last week, or the last time we aired, the stigma of being a teacher is a big stumbling block. So I think that that's a lot, just the perception of the teaching profession needs to improve. When I take that piece of special education, I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is stop tracking, stop these tracking systems. And can we please in education adopt this idea that all kids can learn at high levels based upon, and it's dependent upon not us providing them the opportunity to learn, but it is because we are dedicated not to teaching in our schools, but we have to be focused on learning in our schools. The other big piece that I think that that is really at the heart of our conversation today is this idea about the low numbers of African American males, Black males in education. And I think Sharif hit on a lot of what I thought on this conversation is, we're talking to Black males post-bac, and we're talking to other groups in the third grade. If we're really going to do something about this issue that impacts our culture, I like what Sharif said when we began, is this ideal of policy, advocacy, and agitation. We need some people to stand up and be disruptors and disrupt the current system, because if we know that something is good for our kids, if we all have talked about the difference that was made in our lives, then we have to stand up for our kids and disrupt the system and hold our school boards and our schools accountable. What is your plan for recruiting? Can we have a very intentional strategic plan to identify kids as early as elementary that have natural leadership ability that we may say, hey, you know what, you would be a great, can we have some systems put in place to identify young Black men, young Black women, especially young Black men, and maybe we grow our own. Maybe after we do some things with you through your career, when you graduate, maybe there's a promise by human resources that if you go to school and get an education degree, we guarantee that if you meet a certain level of competency, we guarantee that we're going to give you a contract and we're going to grow our own. I think that to do this, having conversations is great. Identifying the problem, we know it's a problem. It's been a problem, but I think that we need to disrupt and agitate the system. I think we need to show up at school board meetings and we need to ask the questions that everyone wants to dance around, but no one wants to address. If you know it's a problem, show me in your budget that you know it's a problem. What are you doing because where you put your money is things that you believe in. Show me in your budget where you know that increasing the number of Black males is an issue.
One of the best lines from the movie, show me the money, right? Like,
don't make me stand up and do the dance. Come on, show me the money. Show me the strategic plan. Show me the data. Charles?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like Maggie, like you said, right? If you could predict it, you could prevent it. And if you want to hear anything about agitation, I would encourage you to catch Reef and his colleagues on 8 Black Hands. I try not to listen to it on my way into work, because I feel like I'm going to get fired because I get all like, I'm like, I'm going to listen to it on my way home.
Oh,
so appreciate
you.
But, I don't know how much more I can add to this, but I absolutely, this idea of, I think part of what we talk about, we need to be that agent of change that we're looking about, right? Like it doesn't help when we sit around in our spaces and we're just sitting here talking about how horrible it is to be an educator. Because then who wants to become an educator?
Right.
So I definitely think that is part of it for us to say, no, like my daughter, and now as we're having this conversation, my daughter just graduated from high school. She's about to go off to culinary school because that's what she wanted to do. But years ago, I remember she used to teach classes like our neighbors. She would bring the little kids over. She would, that was her playtime. She ran classes and did all these sessions. I was like, this little girl, she's going to become a teacher. But somewhere along the line, that passion for teaching and educating others, the glory, the glamour behind it was gone. And she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And we have to ask ourselves, why does that fade away? And it seems to fade away for certain populations more than others. Mm-hmm. And Reef, the thing you said about third grade really struck a chord for me, because I was so excited. I'm like, hey, look, in CPS here in Chicago, Dr. Janice Jackson, our former CEO, started something called Great Expectations Mentoring. I was part of the first cohort, and it's designed to facilitate Black male leaders specifically. So, hey, you're an educator within the system. Let's cultivate leaders, right, to go into assistant principals, principalships, network leaders, right, into the district level. So that way you could be agents of change within the system. And that's great. But as you said, it only goes so far if I'm not even getting teachers, right? We have at UIC, we have Call Me Mister, another great program encouraging young Black men to go into education. But again, it's like, how do we take that back even further so that way we're not hitting you, maybe 11th grade, 12th grade, right, when you're already in college.
It's late.
It's super late. And so I appreciate that, because now I'm thinking about being in a primary school, I have that opportunity to start cultivating, with our young people, right? I have these babies, these kindergartners coming in. I'm spending the summer with them. How can I start with them so that they look at me, they look at the people around them and say, I want to do what you're doing, right? But I would encourage, like Max said, this is just beyond us, to the system. How can you make teaching more lucrative? How can you make it more where people actually want to do this work? Because I'll be honest, right? A lot of times we see the systems that are in place that push back, that are saying, hey, the things you're trying to teach, right? The realities and the histories that you really want to teach, we're not going to allow that, right? And that makes it very scary, makes it very dangerous for people who look like us to enter into a profession, because then we're being told you can't do what you're here to do. And so this is a much larger system, but it doesn't mean that we can't all be a part of that change. And so, whew, man, there's definitely, I think there's layers to this and more conversation.
Part 2 on this subject. I don't think we're done with
2, 3,
this.
4.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. I mean, you know, Mac talked about the money and the resources and things like that. You're talking about one. I mean, I think things like this, right? Like the, you know, inside the principal's office, like you're creating community, because yes, it is unsafe. Look, being Black in America and Canada is, you know, sometimes people think that's different than being Black in American schools. Right. Being Black in America is just like, it's synonymous with being Black in American schools. Whether you're imagine that Black teacher who's dealing with microaggression, macroaggressions from their colleagues, their supervisor, but they're also remembering the childhood trauma from being a student in those same seats from their teachers and principals and the school board, whoever. But then now, so they got those two things, right? What I'm experiencing now and the undealt with often trauma from being a Black student and being Black in American schools, right? Now, add a third component. I'm trying to protect children that look like me in the moment. Dealing internal stuff, pushing back against the ecosystem and trying to protect, right? That's a lot. And that's why communities are so important, that we build spaces to, you know, not only for shield and armor, but strategies to address the context that they're in. You talk about like plans for recruitment. The most important recruitment plan is a retention plan. How are they supporting? And we can also, as educators, play a role in that, part of our own self-determination as we agitate for change, right? Like we just can't passively say like, oh, well, this got to be fixed. As you said, we can't just complain. Like, what are we going to do about it, right? In the moment. So, and yeah, that early exposure and clinical experience for us, that's the whole reason, you know, why we use that, exactly what Charles talked about. Like, okay, how do we, you know, support youth in thinking about what is teaching? It's leading, right? It's leadership, right? We need vanguards in our schools, in our classrooms, on our school board. We need vanguards. Yeah. Who are those vanguards going to be?
Yeah, and I think that I noticed when you discussed today, you always talked about leading in a classroom, and I think that is very important for us to put out. And we try to make that clear in this space, that leadership has nothing to do with the office you're in, your nameplate, your cards. Leadership is all about influence. Do you have the power to influence others? Do you have the power to use your influence? And that's one of the things that I do in my Young Men's Leadership Academy is I define leadership. It is the ability to use your influence to make things better for those around you. And most definitely in classrooms, yeah, you are a leader, and the decisions that you make every day impacts kids' life. Statistically, if you get a bad teacher, I think statistics say if you have a horrible year with a horrible teacher, it takes 3 years of excellent teaching to make up for that 1 year and to close the gaps of that 1 year. Teacher leaders, who coined that phrase? I'm a teacher leader. No, you are a leader.
It's redundant, most redundant phrase ever, right?
Male leaders in our schools.
Absolutely.
100%.
Man, this has been an amazing conversation, and I'm always
I
know I keep looking at the timer like no, slow it down, Wallace. Can you just reset it? Nobody will notice. It's okay. But we are going to move into our last segment here, and man, again, I know we talk about this all the time, but this conversation, as much as we've said here, can definitely continue on. And so make sure that you connect with us in our other spaces. But we're going to move into our ideas that stick. We've said a lot here. And so we just want to close out. Maybe you are a young man watching this. And if you're not, if you're somebody who is connected to young Black men, share this with them. Please let them sit down and watch this episode, so that they could understand the power that exists within them and the influence that they could have, and then the influence to impact. So we're going to close it out with our ideas that stick is a message of inspiration that we would share out. And so we're just going to go around the horn here. So my first thing is that to be an agent of change, right? Like, we have to understand that neither one of us, any single one of us, is going to change the world, but we can be a part of that bigger change, and to influence the others that come behind us. That is what we're trying to do here. None of us, this show isn't going to fix the problem, right? That when we designed this show and we invited people into this space, it wasn't to say, hey, this show is going to singularity, right? Increase the number of Black male educators. Absolutely not. But if we can begin having these conversations and influencing others, right, hopefully that can continue on. And so that would be my message. Step out, be that change so that others can see you and follow in your footsteps. And we just continue that ripple effect. So, Reef, what are yours?
Yeah, and Charles, I love that. It reminds me, Tupac said, "Look, I might not change the world, but I guarantee I'm gonna spark the brain that does." Right? Like, and I think as teachers, you do both. You are changing the world, and you're sparking the next generation, not just your peers, but the next gen. So I think that's really powerful. For me, it's about mindsets. I think everything begins. At the Center for Black Educator Development, we talk about this so much that mindsets matter most. Mindsets inform your skill level because it informs your will to change, your will to participate in the feedback loop, your will to be a servant leader, and lead with humility and courage, right? And so if we understand that mindsets are like the foundation for everything, as this young educators you're thinking about, like leading a classroom, leading other human beings, recognize just the power of leadership, recognize how do you take care of yourself? How do you care for others? What does, look at, really study, what was Dr. Carter G. Woodson's mindset? What was Ella Baker's mindset? That's the leader that I probably, push people to observe and emulate the most is Ella Baker. What is her style of leadership and how you can bring that? But it starts with the mindset. Mindsets matter most.
All right, we're going to continue around Warren.
Okay. Great points, you guys. Definitely, recognize and appreciate, what Charles and Sharif have said. So for me, I think it's really, again, I think the greatest thing that we can do in our lives is to serve others and to help change the lives of others. I mean, that's really, I think, teaching really, puts us in a position to do that. And, we've been talking about recognizing, the need for change and, the trauma and just the issues that are faced in the school system. So I think that, the need has definitely been identified, but, to step up and really help to be, to quote you, Charles, an agent of change is really, very, very inspirational and very, very, very much needed, and will be very fulfilling. So I hope that will encourage some young brothers to get into that profession and really help to, serve others and be those agents of change.
All right, Mac, bring us home.
My inspirational message is this. I kind of said it already, and that is John Maxwell said, everything rises and falls on leadership. And I want everyone watching this to understand that you are a difference maker and you are needed, Black male educators, and then others. You are a difference maker and you are needed to be a disruptor, to shake up the status quo. I'm sitting here now thinking about things that I am going to do as a result of today. I know that it is an issue, but I'm sitting here and I am convicted because I don't have the data for my school district right now. But you know what's on the top of my list next week? I'm going to pull the statistics of the employees at Denton ISD, and I am going to look for trends in alignment with our conversation today. And inspiration, you can be a difference maker. You can be a difference maker. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I make a difference? Who do I need to talk to? Let's start having the conversation. And it's just very important. I know Dr. Thornell, he's always saying, be bold. You're a difference maker and be bold, and you have a greater impact than sometimes you give yourselves credit for. So this is a great show, 52 minutes. We've gone over a little bit, and I could keep talking. And you know what? Most importantly, I could keep listening to the things that we've heard. And even I've been following real closely today on Facebook A lot of great things that have been shared today. I want to encourage everyone that has viewed today. If you were helped by this, somebody can get the rebroadcast. We want you to share. This is a conversation that we need to keep going, not a one-time show because it's Father's Day and Juneteenth. It needs to be a conversation that we keep having because we want all kids to learn at high levels. And this is definitely something that impacts the learning of our kids. We're not going to have any shows in July. That's when everybody's supposed to say, No, we're not going to have anything in July. But I tell you what, you can see us live in Louisville, Kentucky. We will be presenting at the National Association of Elementary School Principals. It is going to be a great subject. I believe it's the morning of the 15th at 9:30 and at 10:30.
10:30. I'm at 9:30, and then we do it again at 10:30.
Are in the same room. Charles is going to be presenting. What's the title of your session?
Yeah, the problem with color blindness, the tale of a black man raised white.
Excellent. And I'm going to be front row center for his session, and then afterward in the same room, we will be presenting inside the principal's office, and we'll talk about those things that we address in this book that you're going to Amazon right now and purchasing. We will be talking about those things that this reflective journal hits every day, and the importance of all leaders. If you're the instructional leader in the building or the instructional leader in the classroom, we will be discussing that. Our next episode will be August the 6th. And I can't remember the topic, but it will be provocative. And I want us to put on our notes that we want to circle back around and we want to continue this dialogue and this conversation. We didn't get to the point of even talking about hiring practices, who was hired and who wasn't hired. Oftentimes we hear that they were not a good fit. What do you mean by fit? I think there's some things that we really need. There's a lot to unpack. It is impossible to unpack it in less than 60 minutes. But this is our first attempt. And I'll commit, Charles, if you will commit, and our producer, Wallace, I want us to commit to revisiting this. And Wallace is saying in the chat, yes, he's given us permission. I want us to address and to come back to this. I think this is important. Maybe once a quarter, we need to be talking about this in our schools. I could ramble, but I'm going to throw it back to you, Charles, for final words.
Hey, look, I just want to say thank you to everybody being in this space. I cannot thank you enough, not just for being here with us and contributing to the show and what we're trying to build and grow here, but just for the work that you're doing. As we said, this work is super important. And so being able to have individuals out there, not just talking about it, right? I talk about moving beyond hashtags, stop talking, start doing.
Yeah.
So the fact that you guys are out there doing this work, I appreciate it. I am humbled and honored to be a part of your networks and your circles. So I just want to say thank you to both you, Warren, and to you, Reef. Thank you for being on the show. I also want to just send a great shout out and a thank you to everybody who's been popping in. Normally, I know that we talked to you at the beginning of the show, but we were so excited we just jumped in. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being in this space. And again, like Max said, don't let this stop here. Feel free to continue the conversation in our Facebook group. You can find us on Twitter. You can connect with us because we want to keep this conversation going, even though we won't be live in this space here. Again, we won't see you in July unless you come see us in Louisville, and make sure if you do so, get there early. When we did the show in Dallas, people were standing in the hallway trying to watch us. So make sure that you get there early and you get that front row seat. But other than that, we will see you in August. Until next time.
Thank you all for joining.
Thanks for watching and learning with us at SchoolRubric with educators from across the globe. For more access to articles, magazines, podcasts, live episodes, our international school directory, courses, and more, visit us at SchoolRubric.org. Thank you.